This is a video to help you prepare for the Unit 2 Plate Tectonics ISN check. You should have on page 52 your learning objective, complete with the Unit 2 Plate Tectonic title. On page 53 should be a completed table of contents. If you've been absent, please make sure to check on the Science 6 bulletin board for a live link of this table of contents. This will be your guide to this ISN check. On page 54 is our Unit 2 vocabulary for plate tectonics. On page 55 is a warm-up from October 14th and also a warm-up from October 15th. So this is the two double warm-ups. Again, if you're missing any warm-ups, please check the Science 6 bulletin board and click on the live warm-up link. You'll also find these located in the locker. On page 56 will be the handout called Liquid Layering that we did with the straws and the different liquids. On page 57, looks like we started warm but didn't finish, so this might be blank, but we did do the Liquid Layer Lab Explained under that on page 57. You can see we drew density and we talked about what was in each liquid that we layered in the straw. On page 58 is our liquid layer data sheet. On page 59 is a warm-up from October 16th and also our drawing of hot versus cold, what happens to the molecules when things are heated or frozen. Across on page 60 is the puzzling scenario handout of all the puzzling scenarios, as well as your puzzling scenario that you are in charge of solving. On page 61 is a warm-up and also a density equals mass divided by volume, where we explained different parts about density, why the Coke cans actually had the same density. We talked about why some would sink or float. On page 62 was the Coca-Cola challenge. This we compared Coke versus Diet Coke and the similarities, and we talked about why one sank and why one floated. On page 63 is a warm-up from October 22nd, and then we explained the equation for density as well as what happens to different substances. On page 64 is calculating the volume and density. This is where we did the candy bar lab and got the density of a Milky Way and a Three Musketeer. On page 65 should be your Earth layer foldable, and under that should be the information that we got about our foldable that's on page 66. On 67 was a warm-up from 1027 and also a warm-up from 1028, where we thought of food that also could be like the layers of Earth. Page 68 was the journey into the center of Earth, where we made a model of Earth with cookie dough, graham crackers, jelly, and a chocolate chip. On page 69 was Bill Nye Earth Crust. And on page 70 was our 4-1 notes. If you are missing any of the blanks, please visit the locker for the Chapter 2 unit notes, or you can also visit it on the daily agenda. On page 71 is a diagram drawing that we drew of how the plates are moving as the molten material moves up through the seafloor. Again, modeling those convection currents. On page 72 is our modeling convection current lab. There were a number of students out for the band trip, so please make sure you check on the daily agenda. This has been scanned and photographed with the answer key for you. On page 73 is the catapult ideas, and also a warm-up from November 3rd. We talked about our candy corn catapults, and the lab sheet was across from that on page 74. On page 75 is a warm-up from November 4th with our depth and complexity icons, and then we drew an example of conduction, convection, and radiation, the three types of heat transfer, to go with the notes we did on page 76, 4-2. On page 77, we have our Pangea puzzle, where we glued and attached where the evidence was that Alfred Wegener used, and our 4-3 notes on 78 drifting continents. Again, if you're missing blanks in the notes, please look at the notes in the locker. On page 79 is our Pangea persuasive writing prompt, where we talked about how Alfred Wegener used evidence to support his theory of continental drift. There also is a warm-up behind this from November 6th, talking about the evidence Alfred Wegener used for continental drift theory. On page 80 is 4-4 C4 spreading notes. And on page 81 is the warm-up from November 7th, where we drew a diagram of seafloor spreading and labeled the magma moving the new tectonic plates and some subducting back under the continents. We also created an acrostic poem for seafloor spreading. Across on that on 82 was our activity for seafloor spreading, where we can actually see the seafloor spreading, and we took notes on how the oldest rock and youngest rock are further or closest away to the Rift Valley. On page 83 was the article we marked up called the $1 Billion Mission to Reach the Earth's Mantle. So that was on page 83, and underneath the article was a warm-up where we talked about the different ways and evidence the article used to describe our journey to the mantle. On 84 is our 4-5 plate tectonic notes describing how the plates move. And on 85 is your moving continents pre-lab. We talked about the answers as well in class and used this diagram. So again, if you didn't get a chance to check your answers, there's the key. So those were for the pre-lab that had to do with our pudding lab that is on page 86, or modeling the continents. And lastly, on page 87 is your Unit 2 study guide. Remember, there'll be a key posted to help you review for the test. Good luck, and make sure your ISN is looking great.